Hmm. Hmm. Eye contact. Why is eye contact so important to everybody? So, in a previous video on my appearance, behavior, and communication series, I mentioned eye contact being one of the most important forms of human communication and one of the initial forms, you could say, of human communication. And by that I mean it's one of the first points of contact we make when we meet another person. And the truth of eye contact is that it tells us everything we need to know about somebody. And I know there's a lot of people who will probably say, yeah, but there's other exceptions and there's reasons and there's excuses and there's any number of rationalizations as to why you can't trust what you're seeing with your eyes, which is also called being gaslit. But instead, you focus on looking at the person's eyes, and it will tell you everything you need to know. No words, no joke, no kidding. Eye contact can tell you everything you need to know. The most obvious example is if someone does not look well. And by that I mean they look mentally unwell. By that I mean they look potentially dangerous, right? All animals respond and react to various stimuli. And one of the biggest stimuli they understand, which is generally taken as challenge, that's eye contact. But let's get into this. So I took a few notes. Here we go. Right here. Eye contact, yes? All right. So I already covered why does eye contact mean so much to people? Because it can tell you everything you need to know about someone. No words, no kidding, right? And this is where I mentioned before, the eyes are called the windows of the soul, and you can question as to why. And as I wrote here, because the eyes can transmit every bit of relevant information to or about a person, the situation at hand, and even life or death situations, right? You follow someone's eye contact to, let them lead the way. So, and I guess this is where I was thinking about it, and I wrote, eyes are a sort of emotional barometer. There's this whole idea of like, I got something in my eye, right? Don't look at me. Or, are you telling me the truth? Look me in the eyes. Or can you speak to me without your attention wandering, right? So these sorts of things, what the first transmission of eye contact is, its presence. It's how aware is this person? How present are they in this situation? Are they telling me the things I need to know? Can I trust this person? This is perhaps the biggest thing about eye contact. Probably most everyone has heard notions and concepts and phrases and words like, oh, that person has shifty eyes, or, it's practically a meme or a joke, or you can find it in cartoons and movies and all sorts of art and literature and writing. And that's just the very idea that the eyes will reveal someone's motive, someone's intent. This speaks to the whether they mean well in the world or whether they mean to harm people. The idea is through the eyes you can see these things. So the emotional barometer, the soul, and the soul here I defined as where the inner and outer world meet. I think there's some of you are going to understand that immediately, and a lot of you will be shaking your heads and scratching your heads. And we'll just have to get into it as time goes on. But this includes all notions of authenticity or being real or being a genuine self. And the funny thing about even content like that I'm making here and everything else on YouTube and all social media is that there's this idea that people are supposed to be authentic or themselves, when in reality the most authentic thing they're doing is trying to get a reaction or a response from an audience for whatever particular type of content they're making. And often it's audience capture, meaning the content maker tries to create an audience, they do, then the audience creates the content maker because the content maker didn't actually have an original plan or idea or design. It was through making those points of contact that the thing came into being. I don't mean to get lost in the weeds here. I'm just saying it's funny to me that for all the talks of authenticity, especially when it comes to productions, online that are no different than what formerly were TV commercials and TV productions. All the talk of authenticity is kind of silly to me, and in terms of people you like or people that I like, I guarantee you it's people I feel that I can look them in the eye as equals, as friends, as associates, as someone I would want to associate with, right? So eye contact reveals these kinds of things, right? Someone might be hiding who and what they are, and to be able to do that, they have to know how to use their eyes. For someone to flirt, they have to know how to use their eyes. They're all human behavior is punctuated with how we make contact with each other, how we transmit information. And again, I'll keep saying this, the biggest one is eye contact. The first one is eye contact. Before you even know who or what you're dealing with, you actually have to look them in the eyes. There's no getting to know someone. There's no way around it, right? There's no seeing who or what is there without making eye contact. And you also have to be a little bit careful because it can be too intense. There's definitely such a thing as too much eye contact, whether that's on stage at a performance or public speaking, or even on a date, right? Someone can make it uncomfortable. So I've been going on and on about first transmission. Speaks for the person making eye contact. And we're really talking about both of them because it takes two people to make eye contact, right? And it relates presence, attention or inattention, intelligence, intent, right? You can read all this in someone's eyes. There's also other signs that people use their eyes for, whether it's a wink, a nod, follow my gaze to wherever I'm looking, right? We use these things no different than a finger pointing or a book telling someone what to do. As I was saying, it relates attention or inattention. This can relate that someone's aware or unaware. One of the best examples I can think of in modern parlance and context is the idea of cringe. Someone's embarrassed for someone else because that person is so socially unaware. It's almost like that burden gets taken up elsewhere because it can't not exist. It's like, I guess you could say, if a tree falls in the forest and everyone is there to see it, do they cringe? And the answer is yes. Right? So it relates these sorts of things, and it will also tell you what people are or aren't aware of. That's what I mean with the cringe thing, right? That literally by looking them in the eyes, by following their eyes while they're relating what they're thinking or whatever it is they're doing, that's where cringe comes into play. So we're going to move on to point number 2 here, which is the person tells you what they know of things, the situation, the orientation and tone of a room, right? I've said this with people, and I think some people kind of get it and some people don't, that if I walk into a new room that I'm unfamiliar with, generally I'll follow the women's tones, attitudes, and eyes to get a real reading on the room. Why? Because by default, women are more socially intelligent. I don't necessarily want to say emotionally intelligent, because intelligent men are very much the same, which is how and why they can navigate and be successful in such a complex and nearly impossible world that is generally designed against an individual or a family's success. I know people don't understand these things because they think society is engineered to cater to an individual. The reality is society and civilization has never been organized to cater to individuals. In fact, for most of history, it was slavery. I don't mean to get lost in the historical weeds here, but it's clear to me from where I live in America that people are very naive about the nature of life and business and market and work. So I'm slowly expanding all this out into my material so you can understand it on the microcosm, the individual, and also the societal level, and how these conflicts and communications, same difference, right, play out. So it's also a competition. And it seems to me that a lot of people also can't handle the competition either. Yet they want to play the game, or they want the spoils of the game, to which case, that's just not how the game is played. That's a bad player of a bad game. So the person tells you what they know, the things, situation, the orientation and tone of a room, right? I related that in terms of using women's eyes, women's contact to understand that. Eye contact coupled with other behaviors, gestures such as smile, transmits information pertaining to the body, i.e., is this body insecure or not? Is this one shady or not? Is this body trustworthy or not? Is this body messy or not? Is this body attentive or not? Is this body aware or not? Is this person totally naive and clueless? Hello, good morning, America. This is where my head goes. I'm looking at you. Anyway, we'll move on to number 3. So, move on to number 3 here. There we go. Eyes direct, right? You follow the eyes. They direct you. They'll tell you where you need to be looking. You go into a room where everyone is looking, you know to look in that direction, unless they're wrong and they're looking in the wrong direction. Hey guys, the tidal wave's behind us. Something like that comes to mind. Or, the fire's in the basement. You can't even see it. But eyes direct, where they gaze, speaks of our thoughts, our feelings, our sensations, our past, our present, even our future, right? We're constantly looking around, not just navigating our environment. That's the external environment, and also internally, our psychosocial, emotional environment. That's just as real as our physical environment. And again, back to the idea, if I could critique Americans and American culture, not just that they oversimplify and that they are utterly naive and in denial about the reality of the complexity of the human psyche and human psychology, that is our inner world, our outer world, where they meet and where we conflict. I think it's so bad that a lot of you and a lot of my fellow Americans have utterly lost touch with reality. Even things like being a body in the world, right? No, you're not your thoughts and feelings that come and go in your head. You are this body, and I can tell by the way you look, by the way you speak, by the way you carry yourself, by what you are, by how you behave. I can tell what that really is. Not the things you tell me, but the things that your eyes already told me. Right? I could keep going. I'm going to try to move on here, though, because I'm going to try to record another video this morning. So eyes direct, where they gaze, speaks of our thoughts. And what I mean is, someone might ask me a question, and if I'm hesitant to answer, well, there's an answer, right? I go, ooh, I sigh and I look away, and I get that far off look, and I look in the distance, right? There's an answer of sorts by eye contact. Let's see, and so the idea that, the eyes direct the future, again, through this very process, human beings are created. We make contact with one another. The eyes speak, then we speak, and then our future seems to come into being, right? So it's kind of interesting how this works. Or there's something really alluring to me how this works, that for all the talk, that the talk is just talk because our bodies and our eyes and so much about our physical security or lack thereof, aka insecurity, which is a lot of America. In fact, Google says 85% of Americans suffer from low self-esteem, and I don't doubt it. And I know it's easy to think, oh, that's obviously the bottom 85% of society. Not true. The whole hierarchy, the whole up and down of it, from top to bottom, is filled with people of varying degrees of misery, happiness, image or self-image problems, any number of things that affect how they think about themselves, how they feel about themselves, and then in turn, how they relate to the world and how they fit into the world and their place therein. And are they okay with it? Because that's what I'm really getting at with all this, is it is really about insecurity and insecurity. And I've said it before that the riskiest thing you can do is not taking risks, because we're constantly facing change and challenge and new situations. And if you aren't learning to adapt to that, you're falling behind. If you're not seeking novelty, I don't mean like shallow, like frivolous, time-wasting things. I mean, if you're not constantly facing new ideas, challenges, concepts, you're not growing. You're just not. Right? Like when people don't have to change anything, it's really easy to be lazy, right? The most they do, if people are, let's say, happy or contented, maybe they have to change their socks and their underwear, but otherwise people generally tend to run on autopilot, if you've noticed, right? They want things real simple and in a box. And back to my cultural critique, where this culture is clearly sick on itself, is with its overgross simplifications and the assumptions that it can buy everything on the market, that it can represent everything on the market, that yes, life is a competition, yes, there's a market here, but turns out you can't buy status, you can't buy health, you can't buy wealth either. it's working with other people. It's knowing other people. That's how these things really happen, right? There's this layer of intellectual facade that allows people a certain illusion of security because they're so well protected within modern society. But that's not the same, and I'm going to get into this topic, I guess, one leading to the other. A recent stats sheet came out showing the reality of America versus what Americans tend to think of it, like the public perception, like the idea of wealth. How many people are millionaires? Turns out almost nobody. Out of 300 some odd million people, almost nobody is. But every middle class and poor person thought that they were going to become a millionaire. The math doesn't add up. Eye contact will help you reconcile what does or doesn't add up in an individual. And if they can't face up to it, it tells you a lot. And if they're bad at it, that also tells you a lot, right? It could be inexperience. It could be, and I also know, look, and I know not everyone's the same because, I guess other people might bring up things like autism, neurodivergence, things like that, which do have their relevance here. But I'm speaking from the perspective of it doesn't matter who or what you are. Everyone's dealing with their own limitations. Everyone's dealing with their own problems. Everyone has their own unique set of circumstances and pros and cons in which they have been born, in which is their challenge. And life isn't about having other people lay that challenge out for you or solve it for you or pay for it for you, because then you'd be useless and worthless. Number one, you'd be a liability. That's called being a liability, or dead weight. Right? That's what that's called. And I know a lot of Americans like this too. Their idea of relationships and human functioning is just two animals alighting on each other's loads, right? No real responsibility. That's what you have DoorDash and cops and everyone else you can call for your products and services, but they have no concept of loyalty and trust between human beings. And now I'm getting way off into the weeds. Eyes direct. That's what I'm trying to say. All leaders know this. Women know this. Men who aren't naive and childlike or off in their own little world, which most men are, let's be honest. That's why this world is the way it is, because most men are subject to other men and they're off in their own world, imagining their own escape, designing their own escape, right? This is why we go into small business, to get away from the massive soul-crushing corporations and the nature of being beholden to so many organizations that plenty of us don't agree with for any number of reasons, whether it's institutional or otherwise. But a lot of times it is institutional. Institutionalized people, institutionalized thought generally can't be trusted. It doesn't, you can hardly sell it on the market anymore. People don't even believe or buy it, right? America has run out on a lot of its MLM and Ponzi schemes, including things like university itself. But that's also why someone like me is here, who actually knows about our culture and can educate you in these things, which is why I, Zachariah Morkowski, here at Sharper Pen Image Consulting, am here to say, yes, you do have a legacy, you do have a culture, you do have a language. You have to learn how to use it. And the eyes will forever be the windows inward and the first points of contact for any language used. So again, thank you for your time. Before I wrap things up here for this video, let me go on ahead and just finish what we have here. So eye contact can even communicate a whole new human being's entire future, right? Covered that, right? That's dating and mating, right? The whole point of dating isn't to have fun, guys. Dating was never fun. It was about security. It was about survival. It's funny to me that so many people don't seem to understand that, if they can't figure out how to meet someone of the opposite sex and have kids, that's not the world's problem and that's not society's problem. That's their individual problem. And that if they die off without reproducing, that's not the rest of our problem. And that they need to learn how to compete and they need to learn how to land a mate, right? Rather than trying to tell the rest of the world, like women trying to tell men how to behave, or even women trying to tell men how to behave, when we know what works and what doesn't and why. This is why I'm here as an image consultant, because I can help educate you in these things. Again, it becomes all our problem with our societal problems, because these people are so inept, because they're liabilities, right? So this is the importance of eye contact. It's firm, it's strong, it relates a lot, it communicates a lot. Anyway, and I guess my little note, if you don't think so, maybe your child will someday ask you, how did you meet mommy or daddy? Well, there I was in prison and she was the prettiest looking one who could make eye contact with me, or whatever it was, however people, wherever the kids meet these days. Online, I think. I don't see, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, where my understanding seems to be that a lot of you are so socially inept that you think meeting people in the real world is weird. You think people talking to each other is weird. I'm letting you know, you're the weirdos. That's weird. Not being able to socialize, not being able to communicate yourself, not being a clear, coherent, trustworthy human being, that's the anomaly. Being the product of a corporation state who is incapable of having human relationships, that's the anomaly. Thinking you can buy everything on the market, thinking that even everything on the market is all there is an anomaly. And then thinking that the only way to deal with the market in life is what's available there, or what can only be found there, or is off to the side. Like that, you think that that's the only, that so many people turn to it, and that's all they have is commercial guides to life and commercial guides to market, that Americans and other people have been taught and instilled and commercialized to believe that. That's the anomaly, right? That this has socially and emotionally warped people, right? Our business, our consumption, our way of life. There's a lot of good things about this country. There's a lot of things that make us powerful as individuals and as a group. And also everything about it is absolutely destructive to individuals and the groups. Chief, first and foremost, is rendering a lot of you guys socially worse off, like leaving you in intellectual and emotional ghettos of the mind, leaving you guys high and dry, giving you the most bare bones, low brow, low rent, crass, uncouth, vulgar, reactive, effeminate culture, right? It's not manly to be so reactive, to be so emotionally charged that you cannot maintain your head. I understand passion all too well, believe me. I think if you're watching this, you know it because you can see it. And I'm pointing to the fact that I see you guys and you gals all too well. So those of you who need help, and there's a lot of you, and those of you who could further improve because you're still not good enough, no matter how good you become as an artist, as a businessman, as a performer, as a human being, it's still not good enough because life is constant change and challenge. This is what I'm saying. Without that, you're rotting. Not only are you not growing, you're actually decaying. So anyway, Sharper Pen Image Consulting. You need help with your appearance, your behavior, your communication. I'm here to help you. Please contact me. If you're my audience, I love you. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing. But I don't want to say that because none of you really do that. And what I want to say is that let's try something new. If you heard something in this video that you knew, that you sort of knew, that not that someone told you, but that you bodily knew, that through your own experience and understanding, you could sort of see how what I'm saying is true. If you knew it, but you never said it or thought about it in the forefront of your mind, and I just did that for you, now I want you to like, share, and subscribe, right? That's the game. So if I've done that, then like, share, and subscribe. And if I haven't, well, you've never met or seen me before up until now. So that's not the case. So that means I think you have to like, share, and subscribe. But anyway, thank you to my audience, and to everyone else, shun the non-believers. Nobody will ever care, or nobody has to care what non-believers think. That's always been the case. Nobody cares what anyone thinks. Opinions don't matter. Talk doesn't matter. Let's make contact here. Give me a call. Paid consultations available. Zachariah Morkowski, Sharper Pen Image Consulting. I got your back. I can help you out. Thanks again. Take care, everybody. Thanks again. Because you're programmed from an early age. You don't necessarily think oh, my childhood was shaped by marketers. But it absolutely was.